when you stand up and get ready to take a blow, you have the confidence that you can accept the blow.
As a point of interest, none of my men wear protection in the groin. None.
After all, you wouldn't want your attacker to get injured.
That hurt my foot.
I think the first game, it was a great experience for us. It was a great learning experience about to remember or remind ourselves who we are, right, and what we need to do well on the field and to get wins. I know sometimes it's difficult, and it's the key, how much consistency you can have throughout the year. But we show up today in the way that this team and the identity of this club is, that we want to win. Doesn't matter the opponent that we have in front of us. Doesn't matter if we are playing well and we don't score and they score on us. We can respond. And once we click in the way we want to play and the mentality, I think you can see the good things that you saw today.
Remind ourselves of our identity. It's FC Dallas head coach Nico Estevez after the 3-1 thrashing of Los Angeles Galaxy in Frisco. The first win of the season for FC Dallas. It really feels like the season is now officially underway. And welcome everybody to Afterburn Soccer. New name, but some familiar faces and some good old FC Dallas conversation. Whether you're listening to us on a podcast or you're here with us live, thank you for taking some time today to talk FC Dallas with us. And I'm here with my buddy Ishmael Belcora. You can follow him at Belcora Ishma. And excited to talk some soccer for the next few minutes with him. And of course, I'm Nathan Hill. You can follow me at Nathan J. Hill. I'm coming to you now from a different time zone, so we've had to finagle all that. But we're here, and luckily, we got not a miserable game like that opening season loss to Minnesota to talk about. But we have a win, right? A delicious win against the visiting Los Angeles Galaxy. Let's just start with reactions. Ishmael, as you caught up on the game, just what were your reactions to FC Dallas's performance?
That was a really, really good second half. I mean, when we're comparing the 4 halves that we've played so far of soccer, 3 of them were not good, like just straight up not good. And so it was just really exhilarating just watching those 2 goals go in the second half and just seeing more control by the players on the field, and just seeing the talent that we know that they have and the tactics that we know Nico's been trying to implement. And it was a fresh sigh of relief, kind of weight off shoulders, mainly because it's an unexpected thing for us to lose the first game of the season. It hasn't happened in over a decade until this year. And so a lot of us were really worried, really concerned, overreactions to the first game with some healthy dose of criticism. But now, like you said, it feels like now the season is starting because of the fact that we're not used to losing so early on. So, yeah, it was a really, really good game.
And there were shades of the opening weekend game, just with, you give up just a kind of a scrappy goal. It wasn't exactly the prettiest soccer for Los Angeles. It was just some mistakes, some mental mistakes, and they just a deflection ultimately bouncing off of Martin Paz. Just disappointing to give it up. So for a moment there, I was like, oh no, not again. Here's a team that was you could tell in their body language, they're frustrated, just not able to make that final pass. And then at the end, we saw it in our opening sort of credits of the show. At the end of the first half, when almost it seemed like Nico was going to have a hard conversation with the guys. Edwin Cerrillo launches a long ball. It comes down. It's misplayed by the defender. Paul Arriola is able to slide it across, and Velasco puts in the first goal for FC Dallas in this 2023 Major League Soccer season. Good stuff. And you could tell from that moment on, the team's energy just looked different. Right. In fact, let me play a little clip of Arriola after the game talking about that opening goal.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like the relentlessness that I bring to a game. Just constantly knowing to try and get him behind. Obviously, we were constantly looking for that connection, trying to play the ball over the top. Obviously, the guys up front, we were getting frustrated because it often wasn't connecting. But just on that play, it was just one of those plays like you just try and make something out of nothing, and just tried to fight for the ball, but was able to kind of beat him out on the challenge, and then was able to get a ball across real quick for Alan.
Well, I think.
Ooh. Sorry there. We'll come back to Nico in a bit. But yeah, something out of nothing. I mean, that's an appropriate descriptor for this goal, right, Ishmael?
Yeah, and I think it's a goal. All three goals, what they had in common was it was high-speed transition moments, and something that we couldn't really do against Minnesota because of how deep they were playing and how difficult their block was to break. And so once that first goal again, that's just hammering them with those long balls that we kept pushing in the first half. A couple of them went through, a couple of them didn't. But then in the second half, everything just got more open up. You talked about that energy. They started playing with more intensity. The press was a little bit more successful than it was last game. And so I think those kind of sparks in the game are, even though it happened at the end of the second half, at the end of the first half, those sparks really are able to energize the players, especially when you start to get into that low mood when you've conceded 2 goals in 3 halves and haven't scored anything. Like that kind of spark that you can get can ignite a flame that hasn't gone on for a couple minutes.
Right. Yeah, and part of that was, of course, Jesus Ferreira, who had such a strong season last year, but certainly had moments where it looked like he was just rushing things, struggling a little bit, and it sort of extended maybe into the World Cup. But I think it's a little harsh because there's a lot of things out of his control at the World Cup, including just the way that they were being asked to play and things. So, but even for preseason, not really getting any goals and not really getting going, so you could feel him sort of frustrated a bit. So, yeah, I always know for Jesus, you get that first goal for him, and all of a sudden, it's just like, I can relax now. I can relax and just play my game. And he was unlucky not to score in the first half. He had a pretty solid shot, went off the post, off, I think, a Farfan cross, and then in the second half probably should have had a third, just went high, I believe. And so, yeah, just so much of this professional sports world is about just confidence. It's just about being able to not overthink things, not snatch at things, not try to do too much. And so, yeah.
And Jesus, Jesus is just a player that feeds off of his form. And so, like, you could tell in that first half, he was getting extremely frustrated, not just with, like, the post is what it is, but there were a couple times when those long balls weren't working or when players wouldn't find him, and he'd get frustrated. And in previous years, that frustration would come from just youth because he was a young player. But now he's been a professional for like 5-6 years, and like you can tell, like it's just a desire to help the team build and like score goals and be successful. And so those moments, it's just frustrating as fans on his behalf because like you can tell he's really pushing for it. It's not for lack of effort. It's just for those first 3 halves, the balls were not bouncing his way. And so that's why whenever he's able to get that weight off his shoulders, we, like you said, we can relax now because we know he's here.
Let's jump to and hear from him after the game, and his kind of reactions to the effort.
Well, it was huge. I think the team wanted to win. We needed to give it to the fans. We had to see what we did wrong in the first game, that we weren't able to take the 3 points and apply it to this game. And I think that the team was excited. The team was ready for the challenge, and happy that we got the 3 points at home.
Your first goal came from a combination of you, Alan, Paul. How important is it for that front three to be with that chemistry and whatnot?
No, I think that the top three up front have chemistry. We're building chemistry and we're learning from each other every day. And for it to come alive in a game and work out and see the outcome that it's a goal, it's always amazing. And we're always working on to make it stronger and be able to score more goals.
The hope here, of course, is that that this chemistry just continues to develop for this team, and it becomes just deadly for other teams to deal with. That you have to pick your poison, I like to say. And I think you can look back at the first game and just say that they just weren't quite on the same page. There were the ideas there, but it just wasn't quite clicking yet. Would you agree with that, Ishmael?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned earlier, all 3 goals in this game were off transition moments. The first one was a long ball. The other 2 were like tackling the ball, like intercepting it, and then pushing for a counterattack, and then going and scoring. We have yet to score a goal from open play of possession, and that's what we were trying to do against Minnesota. Because in Minnesota's case, the line was so deep that you couldn't counter that when all the players are playing defense. And so that is what I don't think is clicking, not even yet. I think in this game we showed that the pressing can be successful, and we know this because we have players like Paxton, like Jesus, that the front 5 are able to push forward so well and put pressure on the defense. We know that's been successful in the past. But even last year, there were concerns about how we're able to break down blocks and how we're able to play through defenses. And so far, it's still something that the team needs to look at and try to improve. And so, yeah, that's what I think is the frustration came from in the first game, and what the frustration was in that first half. And so, in the next game against Vancouver, if we're able to adapt a little bit more.
Yeah. Sorry about that. My dog in the background kind of goes ballistic at times. So, the big question for me is the midfield that's part of that equation. It's just it's interconnected parts all together. I mean, we know Farfan is pretty much locked down the left back spot. Well, Giovan Jesus was brought in to push Tomasi at right back, and I thought he was better in the second half against Minnesota United, but it's game state at that point. FC Dallas was sort of throwing everything forward, trying to break down Minnesota. So of course, an attacking right back is going to look a little bit better than how you maybe started the game. But I thought Tomasi had a good solid game, and Tafari had a good solid game too. But Edwin will be the question mark going forward. I thought he wasn't too awful. He helped generate that first goal, but so even the front 3 are dependent upon this midfield, and it just feels like Paxton, phenomenal performance, but the other 2 guys, you still kind of want Sebastian to do a little bit more. Maybe he's still getting fit. But the big question mark at the 6 with either Facu or with Edwin, it kind of lurks there. Even though it's tough to complain too much after a win, right? I mean, it's just.
I mean, we can find a way to, and I think legit, I'm not too concerned about, because again, in preseason he didn't start a single game, so he's still getting fit. I'm kind of confused as to why he's playing, in this game at least, a full 90. when you have Siki there that can play that position, you could push Velasco into that space. Like, I don't think putting burden onto Sebastian when we have such a thin midfield right now
Yeah.
is the best choice. But yeah, like when we're talking about the press, like 5 players go to press. It's the front 3, Paxton, and Leggett. And in that first half, the Galaxy were able to get past that press a couple of times. The Rio is not good enough in defending the whole field in those kinds of moments when the players are too far forward. And so it's not really, I wouldn't describe it as it's on him, but in those moments, he's just not good enough. And Facu is also not good enough in those moments. I remember in this game, Cerrillo, whenever that they would pass the front 5, Cerrillo would be dropping back into between the center backs, leaving a lot of open space in the middle. And so that happened consistently, leading to chances. That's why LA Galaxy had that like 10-minute span where they had like 5 shots. And so early on, like from what we can tell so far, it does not look like that progression for Cerrillo is there to compensate for Facu and how poor he plays. Again, we're still early on, but Cerrillo's been here since 2019.
Yeah.
And he has progressed. There's no doubt about it. But, I mean, we all remember that 4-0 Chicago game that we lost. But he is not at that level where he's even a top 10 defensive mid in the league. And that's what's needed to be in that top 4 conversation in the Western Conference. So we'll see how it goes in the next 3 or 4 weeks. But yeah.
Well, our buddy Jose would have been on tonight, but he got pulled away. Looks like Tommy's joining us here in a second, but Jose has sent in a comment. Thank you, Jose, and we're hoping everything is fine with your family. Last season, FC Dallas feasted on teams that didn't employ a low block, more so if they used a high line. Happy to see the attack come to life, but now they have to do it against a low block, which is the question, right? It's what you were just talking about, Ishmael. Like, it's one thing to get a team that's going to push forward, and take advantage of those quick transitions, but it's another thing when a team just is going to make you make the mistakes. It's a tricky proposition.
Yeah, and I mean, Vancouver's probably not going to play block. Like, Vancouver's probably not going to play a low block because they need a win, so they're going to be pushing really hard. LAFC in like 3 weeks is probably also not going to do that. But like a game like Kansas City, the next home game, like a game like what we're going to have against Portland, teams that come to Dallas are going to be playing in a low block, and we cannot break that. At least currently. Against Minnesota, we couldn't do it, and LA Galaxy didn't employ a low block. They played a higher line, and that's why we were able to be very successful. And so Jose's right. Like, this has been an issue in the entirety of Nico's tenure, and I think that having a defensive mid, a DP defensive mid, that can do the passing to break down a low block and do the defensive work that's needed after high press, that's the only way this can be successful. Or else we're going to get similar season as last season with not much success, probably not a lot of players getting worse, but we want the trajectory to go forward. And I don't think Cerrillo and Facu can do that, at least currently.
Well, we welcome Tommy into the show. Tommy, good to see you. You can follow him at Tom_FC Dallas on Twitter. But yeah, Tommy, give us your reactions from this first win of the season, not the first game, but the first win. Are you still feeling the high after the 3-1 beatdown?
I feel much better, and I got to be honest. I know you were talking about the Minnesota game. I think I should have known better than that. I know that FC Dallas does not play well against Minnesota. Just their tactical, as you were just commenting on that. They kind of clog up the middle. They stay back. It's just not the best matchup for FC Dallas, and I was very down on that performance the first week, and that's why I was predicting like a 2-0 loss. But definitely not a 2-0 loss team for FC Dallas. this past weekend. It took a while for them to score that goal, but all credit to Areola for that, great square pass. That's all on anybody who would finish that pass. I mean, but it was just a different second half. Right after that, it was no looking back, and it made me feel warm. It made me feel good about the team. My grades were a strong B for everyone on the field. I didn't see any deficiencies out there. I was really happy with Farfan. I think he could have had an assist early in the game. He hit a great pass to Pereira, who hit the post. If that went in, that's an assist, an early goal, a game changer for the game. Once you go up, the game changes, right? I just thought it was a very strong performance, but especially for Jesus, Paxton, Areola, Farfan was another one. I don't have anything to complain about this game, but it was a different lineup than the first week, right? There were some questionable starters on the first week, but one thing I noticed in the game is a lot of different passing up in the final third. Y'all remember how many times they just crossed it over from one side to the other, just like that's something we've seen in the past. Not as often in one game where they were just passing from the left side to the right side, the right side to the left side, and that's how Jesus got one of his goals, a header off of Areola, another assist, a second assist from Areola to Jesus. And that dynamic is something I picked up in the game, is that there's a different dynamic in the final third, and it looks like the coach, Coach Nico is teaching the team, or he wants the team to be a little loose in the final third. Don't be so rigid on your passing. Try to get the ball in the box, and it worked. It worked this past weekend, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Paul's assist on the second goal was just savvy. Was just a veteran, and Jesus' use of space in that moment, just wonderful. And then, really, the third assist for Paxton, what wonderful that he's going quite fast there, putting pressure on defenders. Then to just weight that pass correctly, just was beautiful stuff. Is it the greatest pass in the history of soccer? No, but it's just wonderful to see Paxton get rewarded because he is putting in the work. And that kid, this is his year, and I just hope it continues.
That play you're talking about, that's a homegrown, calmly making a pass to another homegrown, calmly finishing it in the corner. I mean, that's big. It's big.
Yeah. Well, let's get Nico's. Oh, go ahead, Ishmael.
I was saying it's because of the pressing in that before that goal that we're just like, that's so great. Because Paxton, again, those injuries that he had like 2 years ago, you could tell he was feeling it even last season when he kept getting pulled in the 60th minute. Here he's pulling assists in the 60th minute off of a really good high press against a former Barcelona player. That's very, very encouraging. And the next step is for him to finish the opportunities he has. Like, there's still the times when he gets the ball top of the box, he's like, no, I'm going to pass it to a 3-yard offside Obrian. But like, you can tell he's coming back, now becoming a full-on professional, and it's just once he starts getting those numbers, he got an assist. That's already half of the assists he had last year. Once he starts getting those numbers, it's just going to be like heartwarming.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. Yeah, and Paxton driving up the center of the field was a sight to see. Good stuff. Let's jump over to Nico. I got to ask Nico in the post game about just after the disappointment of the opening game and then this game, what he wants to see the crew moving forward with, taking from this mass match into these coming games.
Well, I think to see in perspective is we had 11 shots today, and against Minnesota we had 11 shots. The difference is we had 4 shots on target and 3 goals, and then against Minnesota we had 1 shot on target and 0 goals. And then sometimes soccer is that simple. and then you have your chances and you score. Even that we didn't play the way we wanted against Minnesota, we didn't deserve to lose that game. And it's just about refocus and see the reality of this. And the reality of this is you have to go one game at a time. And you don't have to think about anything else. And if you win, it's okay. If you lose, it's okay. And that's it. And we don't like to lose, but and we love to win, but you cannot go too high and you cannot go too low. You have to be balanced because this season is very long. MLS is a really, really difficult competition, and you can see the results today. And it's something that we have to understand, everyone here. And I was pleased with some things that we did against Minnesota, and other things we needed to address. And I think we did it. And the players' response was amazing. And sometimes it takes time. And even if we lose this game, if we have this mentality and this intensity, of course we won't be happy, but it will be things to grow from there. Right now we have more points than last year this time. Then we just have to go one game at a time. This is very long, and focus on what we can control. The other things for us doesn't affect us.
So focus on the things we control, but I loved his point that, which he's right, at this point last season, they didn't have, they have more points now than they did at this point last season. So, keeping sort of a sense of balance to where FC Dallas is, and that soccer can be cruel. Sometimes you can have those games where you give up one shot on goal and that's a goal, and you generate a lot and nothing comes from it. So it's just soccer can be cruel. So I appreciate his levity at this point in the season, because it is a long and brutal season. In fact, the team will now go up and face Vancouver, their first away match of the season, and it's going to be a tough game. It's always a tough place to play. Vancouver has been improving as a team. So I'm just not sure what to expect from this matchup, but in all likelihood, Vancouver is going to approach, is going to limit FC Dallas as much as they can. With their field and all their situations. Tommy, picking up a lot of background noise from your end, I think. So it's all right. It's all right. So let's just turn our attention to what's coming up this week, against Vancouver. Ishmael, how do you think the team's going to approach that game up in the Pacific Northwest?
I think they're going to go with the same ideas as the Galaxy. Vancouver have lost their first two games, and both of them are on the road. So they're going to be looking at this next game as, all right, first two games were on the road against two very good, not very good. San Jose is not that good, but two Western Conference opponents. We need to win our first game at home. Cannot lose this game. And so they're going to come at it full force, right? And they have the players to do that. I mean, Ryan Gold is very good. They have a Bundesliga midfielder. You have Gressel. You have Brian White. And so that is a good forward attack. They don't have a great defense, mainly because the defense is still new. They have a new goalkeeper, just got in 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago. They are in a transition moment right now for their defense. The front three and that press will be very successful, because when you have a defense that is still growing into it, they're going to make mistakes. And so, again, just the same game plan as the Galaxy. We could try to break down a low block, but I don't think we'll have a low block to break unless we concede early and have to deal with that for the rest of the game, which is very possible in a place like Vancouver. So if we're able to not concede in the first 20 minutes, it's just a high press game. And that's what they should be trying to do with the front three. So not much, no real changes, I don't think. This might be a good game to pull out Giovan and give the king, Tomasi, a little bit of a break. But
Yes.
That's the
Yeah.
thing I can think of.
Well, Tom, before I go to you, we'll hear a quick. Tafari was asked about this after his performance this past weekend about Vancouver. Here's what he said.
Yeah, massively important. We know our history with Vancouver. It's always tough to play there, whether it's the field, the atmosphere, or their style of play. So I think getting 3 points and getting a lot of guys on the score sheet is going to be a great sort of advantage going into that game.
Tommy, what do you think? What do you expect against Vancouver?
I think with Nico, we've seen not a lot of change from game to game. I expect the same lineup as last week. I expect a good game from the team. We saw that last year that the team, although they did have some bad games on the road, they had some good games on the road. And for some reason, I just feel good about this team after the second half. I expect a good game from FC Dallas, but I expect more of the same of what we saw in the second half against the Galaxy. Not every team has the same personnel that Minnesota has that plays that the way they do and can just automatically just turn on the switch and play like them. So I don't know that we're going to have the same issues that we have against Minnesota. It's a different team. I think they'll be all right.
Vancouver's going to push things. I mean, it's going to be a tough match. They're going to be looking for that first goal. They're going to be in front of their home crowd who've been waiting for the match. Yeah, I think, again, I'm happy with the draw. I'm happy with the team just building off of this. Maybe they give up a goal, but they scrounge around and get that draw and come back, come away with a point as a way just to kind of keep that progress going. But it'd be fun to see this attack just take advantage of Vancouver. but that's just hard to do. It's just hard to do in this league. It's a really special thing to do that in front of someone's home crowd. It happens, but we'll see. And yeah, I mean, I think my big question is just going to continue to be see how Nico manages this back line. Does Cerrillo sit? Does Facu get the start in this one? Do they want a little more veteran, that kind of thing? Yeah, I think does Jesus start on right back? Do we see Ibiaga back? What is it that Nico saw in starting Ibiaga against Minnesota that he switched back to Tafari? It's just a lot, those questions, right? Like, what does the coach see? And he's not going to tell us that. And maybe he didn't see what he thought he was going to see, so because I thought Tafari was pretty good.
The question I've been having is, I see talent in Tafari, but why is it that he plays sometimes and then, at the beginning of the year, you think this is the year he's going to start day one and he doesn't. It's like, I'm not there at practice and I'm not the coach. But there's evidently they're seeing something that they don't like from Tafari. I don't know if it's just his ball handling, but I think, his youth and his speed is something that others don't have in the back line. And, so.
Yeah, it's we wish we could be sometimes that fly on the wall in the locker room to kind of figure out. But, I think at this point, it seems like Nico, Nico doesn't necessarily have his guys. He has his guys, but he also seems to have a good sense of who can really contribute what he needs out there on the field. So it's gonna be fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see how this, because they did bring on Ibiaga late to kind of preserve the win against Los Angeles, and it was doing fine, but it was a much more limited role of basically just clear the ball, just win the ball and get it out of there. Yeah.
I mean, with LA, Ibiaga basically was playing almost exclusively in the three-man back line for a decent amount of time, right? And so sometimes he played two at the back. And what happens with Ibiaga is that he has very on and off games. I mean, he was probably, in my opinion, the best player on the field in the MLS Cup final until McCarthy came into goal. Like, he was cleaning it up left and right when the other center back was playing very bad. And so, seeing him play in the way that he did against Minnesota, again, that just shows his on-off. It's sometimes it's there, sometimes it isn't. The concern is, again, that also happens with Martinez sometimes. We've had two good games from Martinez so far, but remember, he does not like the heat here. He starts to mess up a little bit, especially in the latter half of the season, and so. The question is, what do we do at that point? Because Tafari is the only one that's consistently himself, unless he does a pass mistake here or two, and that's getting a lot better over time. So what do you do if those two have off games? You play Norris? I mean, that'd be kind of cool, but that should not. Again, that shows how Nico having his guys leads to not a lot of good depth in positions of need. Like again, if Paxton gets hurt tomorrow, God forbid, what do we do? CP, and then there's no one on the bench.
Yeah.
So that's where that depth always has a
Dwell
concern,
on
and
that
that's
too much.
more of a concern with Leagues Cup and more of those games. So we'll see. We'll see. Ibiaga still has a place on this team, but it's going to be interesting as the season goes on to see how.
Yeah. I think we have to give him more than one game, to be honest with you. I know he didn't look good at all, but I think it's just one game. You got to let it go a little bit.
Well, look, I need to wrap the show up a little bit early. We got an appointment in my family coming up. But first, before we do that, how about this? Just reactions to the Apple TV Plus coverage of Major League Soccer so far. Any instant things? I mean, so far I've been decently impressed. It's high quality, good picture quality for sure.
Yeah, the improved resolution is really nice. I think that the app, for the most part, is really nice. Took me a little while to find out how to find the full replay. You got to hold the button down. It's a little not intuitive. I love the break view when they go to halftime. They kind of, or even before the game starts, they already have the game on. You see the players warming up. You see more of the game than when it was on the networks. The other networks, they would go to commercial. They'd come in, the game would start. You see the whole thing, and I think it's been just fantastic. Now there's a feature to hide the scores. It didn't default to scores hidden, so I couldn't make the game the first game, so I had to play a gig. I come home, I want to watch the game, and the first thing that I see is they lost because the scores were on. So I turned off the scores. But then, the main page, when you go in, they have the big headline. They still show the scores on the big headline. So it's not exactly perfect yet, but other than that, I think it's just fantastic.
We want to thank the our buddy Koo for sending us some good shots from his vantage point in the supporter section. Looked like a great raucous crowd. That popped well on the feed for once, I think, too.
Yeah, the production side is absolutely incredible. It just kind of makes me question what was the production we were having with ESPN Plus. Like, was that like 2 tiers below? Were we buying that off Walmart? Like, I really wasn't understanding. Like, this is so good. I'm kind of annoyed about what we've gotten in the past.
I do have one complaint, and I'll wait till you're finished.
But besides that, everything's okay. I think MLS 360 is a little overhyped. Just with 4 people in a room just talking about the scores the entire, for hours and hours on end. And I'm like, it's not really that great. I also wish the Spanish and French streams were accessible in the stream itself, like where you can change to radio, to the radio broadcast team. I wish you could do it of Spanish and French through there instead of having to exit and then scurry around to go find it. But again, those are tiny nitpicks. The production itself being so incredible is just awesome to see.
Hey guys, we're gonna have to.
The one complaint.
Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The one complaint I have is not really the Apple app. It's Steve Davis has been dropped from it, and I think I really enjoyed his color commentary. Mark Followell has been assigned our games, and if I'm not mistaken, it's not really the home crew anymore. I think they're just whoever watches the game is getting Mark Followell. Is that am I
they're
not
just
right?
giving us Mark, which is great. They're just giving it.
Well, but he's no longer really like from the home team perspective. He's calling it both ways. So if the other team scores, the color commentary that we used to get from Steve Davis was very, very in depth. I mean, going to all the practices and stuff like, hey, I've seen so and so take this shot, and it does. That has been dropped, and that's a big miss. That's tradition, and I'm sorry. That's one thing I think it's just someone missed the boat, and it's just bad. I mean, he was great. He should still be on the cast.
We'll get some Steve Davis love there. Look, we need to finish out the show, and appreciate everyone watching, all the comments from Hoach and Jose and everybody, and of course subscribe on afterburn.soccer. See our articles, other content there. We're putting the podcast up there now, so things are going to be looking a little bit differently. Of course, you can come back and watch it here on our YouTube channel anytime you need. Anyway, good night, everybody. Ishmael, Tommy, thanks.